Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and today I'm doing the video that I said I was going to do in celebration of George Perez. We are doing Sachs Violens. This one is going to get me banned from YouTube. Can't escape it. But let me just say, this is just a gorgeous volume, and its hint there's supposed to be more of this. And if you look at the top corner where usually the Marvel has their their character ID thing in there, it says Heavy Hitters Epic Comics. Now when Image got hot, everyone was doing their independent thing, and Marvel did their own thing with their own independent line. Now they went to sort of doing true sort of independent comic books. They did, I think it's Dragon Lines, there was Minutemen, there's a few others, but they really look like, even though it was by a lot of Marvel creators like Howard Chaykin and Tom DeFalco and Ron Lim, and there's others, but this really felt like, I think it was a Man Called Axis by AX by Marv Wolfman and Sean McManus. But this looked like independent comic books, like stuff you would see in independent comic books. Stuff in the vein, like, not to say like I guess like Grimjack, all this stuff. Trying to answer what a lot of creators were saying that the Image guys weren't doing. Because the Image guys, whether there are echoes of other characters, your whole line of characters shouldn't be echoes of other characters, right? But that's what the successful thing was at the period. Not for everybody, for the Image guys. Where there's, similar... No, actually, the initial sales... Well, I keep getting into referencing this stuff that doesn't really always relate. So let's just get into this. Because I was looking at this, and I'm not going to get too much in the story, because, a Perez book, you can basically look through it without reading the dialogue. But it's a grim and gritty story. Now, this can be taken like a noir film, but it also could be like, almost like sort of like a something you see in like the 90s and on MTV, like this sort of editing, all these multiple shots composed. And if you saw like maybe a storyboard or a mission board for like a music video, it might seem like this, showing you how the editor is going to rapidly do this. I think I had another cartoon, but this is something that Steranko would do a lot. So this is Sachs Violens. You know by the strap, the what's the name, the whip, the bullwhip. That's Sachs. You see here by the pictures, he's a photographer, and the bullseye is Violens, right? He's Ernie, and C's JJ, right? So we got past this. So they did their, I think they come fresh off of what's that? Hulk, Future Imperfect. So they're just itching to do another thing together, and having something that was creator owned that they could keep and do again, which they never really did. I think Peter David did go back to these characters, but I think the last we've seen of him is a trade by IDW, right? So we start off with a setup for the Night Rendezvous. And then we get, and now I just want to point out something else with this period, this story right here. Back in the 90s, when Frank Miller, I think in 92, was doing Sin City, some point after it, when he went monthly, or not monthly, he went to miniseries on it, he kind of took a shot at Scott McDaniels, Michael Nasser, and Jim Lee saying they were embarrassing themselves using his style to do other books. And I think on Rob Liefeld's podcast, he was saying, hey, everybody does that. How could Miller, complain about these guys? Well, it's one thing to do black and white stuff, because artists before Frank Miller has done sort of chiaroscuro, high contrast art. But the difference was they weren't using Miller's style for their own books. That would be like Marvel books or Image books that are made more high profile, throw away their style to do his style, not just for like a page or a mood setting or this, that, and the other, doing it for an entire book. Now you look here, this is noir stuff here. This is dark, heavy, mood film, like film noir, that sort of thing, like almost a lot of cuts, that sort of this type of storytelling, something you see Steranko done like that. I think he's done an amusement park where he has a lot of things going on. You have this sort of sex scene, as you can tell, but something happens and we see cut. And we find out this is a setup for a snuff film, right? And the way Perez put together this scene after the action, where we don't know what happened, and everyone is kind of nonchalant, but we know something bad happened, and we're not sure how this is going to play out, right? And we see this dark setup where we grab the girl, the hair. We don't see the head, but then we see a picture and we just see the eyes, blank eyes, and click. And then there would be, and we meet JJ. So there's a lot of stuff Perez is doing in this book. It goes to a lot of things about design and layout, and there's so much like magazine type things, some stuff we've seen Neil Adams do. There's so much stuff in this thing. Catching the Mood in New York. This is him inking himself. So I think hopefully it's the last thing I say about Rob Liefeld's Poet Podcast. Him saying that these guys had kind of lost a step, and they totally hadn't. The only problem was that they weren't coming in and knocking down the door saying, "Give me the X-Men." That's how you make your way in this business, being on top. So, but JJ gets accosted like we would see in the comics in the 80s and the 90s, of course, and she handles business. And she's a knockout, the classic Zaftik, Perez babe. See, like this sort of magazine design layout. And we meet Ernie, who's this photographer. Then we have JJ going in here, meeting up with him. And we got a whole lot of nice good girl art. Some stuff that would be really nice in a magazine type of deal, right? And, and she's gorgeous. And it's, so I don't think there's any nudity in this, but there's a lot of raunchy stuff going on. Oh yeah, there we go. There's a little something. But yeah, the way this thing moves and the storytelling, it's just like, this is, Perez, it's hard to say, because when you saw him doing the Justice League and the X-Men and for the X-Men Annual and the Avengers all at once, we we can't get better. And like Perez shows that he could get better, right? Even up to his Avengers work, right? In this part of the story, we reveal how this dark side of Ernie that he has in there, so we can get the whole idea of the sex and violence out of this story, right? And this thing that's in him hasn't gone away, right? That's going to lead to something we'll find out later, right? So then these dummies are driving around. They don't know what they're doing. They're looking at, he's showing pictures, all in the setup, and they, by mistake, crash and drop the body, and the head rolls out. And this leaves a case that has to be solved, right? You get a nice character thing, some racquetball getting in here with, I think it's JJ's sister, Mac, right? And it's like, it's showing that he could basically do any sort of city sort of setup. It's just really like cool stuff. I'm not sure if I'm going to go through this whole thing. Maybe the first 2 issues, right? Because this is one of those things that's very dense. And we find out that she knew this person, the person, she sees one of her friends. He talks about Ernie, but then when he said friends, it's across to her seeing something and not saying why she's running away. So this is a nice setup with the dialogue to the picture to moving to the next thing. So you see how these two were, the writer is working with the artist. Whereas like she's talking about Ernie, it says they're just friends. She friend zoned him. She sees a picture of something and she doesn't say anything to her sister and she runs out. And of course took some guy's cab, right? They said heads are gonna roll for this one, for the mistake those guys made, for the body being found. Let's see, here's those guys. And I think that was the guy that was with the girl. They had to take him out. Then he takes out those dummies, right? So then we get some little detective work by JJ here. But this she's reading her messages. Look at this. Look at what he does. The return home, right? Kicking her feet off, playing her messages, and how he has her positioned, and he's looking at the girl, and she's hearing the messages. This is a really great. He really is like coming up with different ways to do some cool stuff. Art of Perez at the Met. See that? Oh, they almost should do it. And we get our introducing Sachs Violens, right? All right, so we're gonna do this next one. I don't know if we're gonna get to the kid's story. This one is really dark, and this one is tough too. I'm pointing out this. I'm saying what's tough, but you see the guy with the axe. This is the last issue where he inked himself, and then because Peter David and people at Marvel was like, we knew what happened when you were at you were working on Hulk Future Imperfect, that we're taking it from you. So, and look at all this detail, like good Lord, right? And they're going into the sex shop. This because I believe Perez was was a director of some kinky sort of filmmaking. So this is sort of going to a lot of that stuff, right? So she gets her weapon, right? He's looking at this. It's not good. Oh yeah, so then we're kind of backtracking, right? So we trying to find out where JG is, and then he had this sort of picture border to kind of kind of say this is the flashback in the story. And I've seen a couple artists do this in a couple different ways. So they kind of play with time in this, and I know they did in the last story. They played around with time, right? And he's just trying to catch up with, trying to figure out where JJ is, right? He goes asking more questions in all the wrong places. He gets confronted with a knife, but he's prepared. He starts taking people out. He's got a grenade in this guy's mouth, showing you how dark this guy could be, right? And JJ's no slouch herself. She's going on her own mission to find things out. So this one, I mean, ultimately, like, you could film this stuff. You could kind of look at this and extract the film in it, but it's just really some heavy subject matter at the same time, right? And this is replaying what happened. And she actually goes to the smut factory where they're doing the this is crazy. The guy's kids are here while this stuff is going on. It's just so much like trying to hit all of the check marks for the issues of sex and violence, right? And JJ goes to work, right? This is her sort of coming out party, some mood set up of what she's doing. They're taking pictures of it. She tells the kids to get out of here. Ooh, that's a lion tamer. I said, go. What are you, deaf? Well, where should we go? I don't give a damn where. Now just get the hell out of here. Out of my way, right? So he's still taking pictures of her. She destroys the camera. She's about to take him out, right? But then reinforcements come, but she's got the main guy wrapped up. But she got knocked out, right? We see this here. They yank it. The kids are running out. Someone's after the kids, and someone helps, right? They let her wake up, and we see the culprit. And she goes to fight. He is too strong. He just tosses her away. But of course, these guys are sadistic, so they want to have fun, right? She's hit him. Nothing hurts. She uses some judo, but then at the same time, she's taking a good beating, and they got the axe ready, right? And as they come, who comes to save the day but the Punisher? I mean, Ernie, right? And the guns all around, right? But at the same time, the big bad guy tosses his blade to cut off Ernie's head, and then Sachs been hiding out, saved him just in time, right? And you can see they have some sort of connection. We had this guy, he's worthy of art, and Ernie takes care of him. So the maid guy, the filmmaker, he's trying to run out. She cuts his hand pretty badly. And then he wants to go to the cops. He's like, I'll be out. And he's going to walk. There's no witnesses. And Violens, or Ernie, says, I've killed innocent people before. Old habits die hard. But you'll die easy. In other words, Itch for brains, it's a wrap. Blam. And then they take the kids away, right? So we have a positive end to this story, right? Should I keep going? Because this is a hard, I don't know if I should do it. Because this is a dark sort of story. It starts the romance between Ernie and JJ, but like one of the characters, let me just scan through it. Yep, it's too much. Perez doesn't ink this one, but ultimately something has happened. What do I want to get to? Oh, instead of going this far in, you got pictures. They got pictures of it, but we got this dark story. Like, look at all this stuff. It's really rough, right? I'm gonna say, before I get in trouble with YouTube, I'm gonna stop right here. I haven't gone this far, and at this point for me, one of the hardest things for me to read was Sin City. So I was like, should I be reading this? And I was well old enough to read something like that, and I was still like that. So when I got to Sachs Violens, it was not a big deal. I just enjoyed the art. But this is YouTube. It is got some raunchy stuff in there. This story deals with a sort of a kid's show, but at the same time, these kids have been kidnapped, and they sort of get taken in by those guys I quickly showed you. And this one is a sort of a flashback story during Mardi Gras. It has JJ is in the hospital when the story starts. So it's leading with some of the characters that are in here, and she's almost ready to be taken out in this story. And we kind of backtrack to the story. So I'm just giving you that much about it. You know, I'd like to go through it. It's just they have an up and down relationship from the next part of this story. And that's all I'm going to give you. Go out and buy it. It's a nice trade from IDW. And I guess that's it. Spin Rack out.